why we need to run year-end processing? I guess, Dave, do you want to kind of cover what the main reason for closing the periods in the year?
Yeah. So, there's really three reasons to run period end processing. And, we're calling this year end processing. I mean, it's really, period end processing, year end processing. It's sort of the same thing in Sage. It's just that when you get to the last period in your fiscal year and you run the period end process, that's also considered year end processing. So they're really kind of the same tasks within Sage, but there's really three things that happen when you run a year end process in Sage. First being it closes the current accounting period. So within each module, you've got the current period and the current year that module is in. And that period, that current period, controls a lot of things in the system. And so the first thing that the year-end process does is it closes that current accounting period. And why that's important is it'll prevent users from posting a transaction to a closed period. So if you've still got your general ledger open in period 12 of 2022 last year, that would give a user the ability to post to that period. So it's important to close the periods to prevent a user from posting to a period that you've already officially closed for business. So that's really item number one. Second reason is it will advance the current period in the module to the next period. So as part of the year-end process, it'll automatically advance the current period in the module to the next period in year. So it automatically happens when you run that process. And then the last thing is it does do some data purge and cleanup. So there are history retention settings in all of the modules. So number of years to retain sales history, number of years to retain general ledger history. That's all defined in the setup options for each of the modules. And so part of the year-end process, it looks at those history retention settings and it automatically does some cleanup. And the reason that's important is over time, if you've been on Sage for a number of years, you may have a lot of history in the system. If you're not running the period ends, then what tends to happen is the system slows down, especially when you're doing like inquiries or you're doing reporting. It'll have to, if you haven't run a period end, you've got a lot of history. It'll have to process through all that transactional data to generate some of those reports or some of those inquiries. So we've seen instances where I was working with a customer a couple of weeks ago that they had some turnover in their staff and they hadn't run a period end or a year end in Sage since 2017. So they had like 7 open years in Sage. And what kind of initiated the question to us was they were running like an accounts receivable aging report, and it literally was taking like 15 minutes to generate the report. Well, part of the year-end process is to clean up that open invoice file. Since that hadn't been done for so long, it was taking that report a number of minutes to generate. We got them caught up by running the year-end processes, and that report now generates in like about 60 seconds. So much quicker process. So it does do some, the cleanup of the data. And so that's something that, you want to pay attention to.